My name's Steve.
Hello. Well, hello everybody, and thanks you for coming here and listen to my PhD presentation about the PhD proposal that focus on exergame design. My supervisor, Mark Billingus, will have supervising this PhD during the following 3 years. Basically, I would like to answer in this presentation 3 main questions: what I'm going to do, why I'm going to do what I want to do, and how we want to do it. Basically, Exergame is a type of game, and the main objective of the game is to better design this type of games. You will see what in the following slide. The first is, well, what is Exergame? To show this, I would like to show a video.
Hi, and welcome to Remote Impact, shadowboxing over a distance. Remote Impact allows 2 players to shadowbox one another, inspired by full-body contact sports to promote stress relief, weight loss, and general fitness. The game encourages extreme physical exertion, and unlike the Nintendo Wii and other console games, it recognizes and registers intense brute force. Traditional contact sports, such as football, rugby, and martial arts, are well known for their effectiveness in social bonding and team building. Remote Impact offers these benefits to participants who live in different places.
Have you had enough yet?
Yeah, I'm knackered.
The shadow of the remote participant is projected onto the interface, along with your own shadow. The goal is to punch and kick the remote person's shadow, but be careful not to get hit yourself, so you have to dodge hits by ducking or moving out of the way, just as in real sports.
Well, as you can see, some people are like engaging in a game, but what it's characteristic about from traditional games is like not only they interact with the full body, but also it seems that they are getting tired doing that. That is one of the main characteristics of Exergames. Here you can see it like 2 more formal definitions from Sinclair and Muller. Exergaming is the use of video games in an exercise activity. And the second, exertion interactions are interactions with technology that require intense physical effort from the user. You see that the common definition is that this physical effort that the users have to do while interacting. Okay, now why we want to do that? Why we are so interested in researching in this area? Is there any out there problem that we want to solve? Okay, here I would like to explain very briefly why we need to research in this type of games. Well, here it seems that there is a lack of physical exercise. Even the animals don't do exercise. There is a problem of that physical exercise. And in the case of humans, maybe different reasons for that. Maybe there are not enough engaging physical activities. Maybe the people don't find the right partner to do physical exercise, or simply we are so busy that we don't have time to do these kind of things. But as a consequence of that, as you can see, this is a study from in the United States. You can see that the problem of obesity. This is a graph that shows how the body mass index has increased substantially, while the height of the people more or less remain stable, and as a body mass index also increased during the last 50 years. Then there is a problem that there is a lack of physical exercise. And of course, the obesity also has health problems, like, for example, we will have more chance to have disease problems or diabetes, a series of consequences that impact in our health. Then how we can at least attack this problem and to motivate people to do physical exercise. One way is to use the technology that people used for playing video games, like instead of having like a remote, a keyboard and a mouse and sitting on the desk, encourage them to use the full body and to do some exercise. Well, now how we want to do that? We have seen what is Exergames, why we want to do that, and now the question is how we want to do that. Before going to describe how we want to do that, I would like to describe the complexity a little bit of the problem. Exergaming can be seen from different point of views. From the social play point of view, where the users not only do physical exercise, but the objective that they socialize between each other. Physical activity, where your main goal also is to the activity in itself. For example, to improve athletic skills. And education is, for example, when you want to also not only physical exercise, but to teach something. I will show you a couple of videos. That's the first video I show you about the shadow boxing also can be categorized in the social play, but here is another one.
Hi, and welcome to Table Tennis for 3. Table Tennis for 3 allows players to play table tennis together, although they can be anywhere in the world. And what's more, 3 players can play at the same time. Nobody has to wait until it's their turn. The players use a regular ball and bat on a table tennis table that has one side flipped up. The video conference of the other 2 players is projected onto the flipped up side, which has been painted white. Each player has a ball with which to hit virtual targets projected on top of the video conference. There are 8 targets, and each hit damages a target a bit more. 3 hits destroy a target, and only the player who actually makes it disappear gets the point.
As you can see here in this example, 3 people socialize each other that are located in different locations, and they're doing some physical activity by playing table tennis. An example from education, this. Here they use the interactive slide platform that that are augmented with technology, and children can engage in a game like by doing physical exercise. Here, in this case, they wanted to teach the Archimedes principle. We have different objects, and some others sink, some others not, and then the level of the water increase depending on the object that you throw into the water. And the goal of the game is to make this fish go to the other side to meet the other friend and catch the mice. This is an example how can merge education, physical exercise, and games. Well, we think that the main objective of the PhD will be to create a model in order to help better design exergames. Because if we have a model that makes us design better games, it follows that people probably play more, and as a consequence, they will spend more physical exercise, will spend more exercise. However, there is a little understanding how to design exergames. And I still don't know if, for example, if one model that is applied in the social focus in the social point of view, I still don't know if can also equally apply to create games that also that focus on education. That is why probably the best choice will be to choose one of the areas. For example, social play. I think it will be quite interesting to focus and create a model based on studies in this area, and then, if we have time, try to infer how this can be applied in other areas, how this model can be applied in other areas. From the social play, we have the human-human interaction. Some research has been done in this area, and I think that could be quite interesting from the human, non-human side. Well, here is in terms of goal and contributions of this PhD. The first contribution and the goal is to study exergaming from focusing social play in human and human interaction. Second contribution, like create a model that help us design better games in the social point of view. Third contribution, like develop a series of exergames. The fourth contribution, we think that could be interesting to develop an analytical tool, software, in order to analyze, evaluate, and these kind of games. And the fifth contribution, apply this analytical tool in exergame applications, and also will help us to validate the model that we want to create. Okay, now how we want to create a new model? Well, the first, we will take input from traditional game theory. I will explain a little bit this. Traditional theory, basically we have a user that interacts with a computer or a video console. And here the user uses keyboard, mouse, or any physical device in order to give input to the game. And the game gives feedback to the user in terms of visual audio. Now the following theories that I will explain, I frame a little bit from taking using the 3D Zynga schema from Zalin and Zimmerman in order to classify all of the theories that are traditional game theory. In the design schema from Zalin and Zimmerman, they identified that play, that is basically deals with experience of the user, the rules, that is basically the formal design logical structure, that is from the game point of view. And everything is framed inside a context or the name culture. From the traditional game theory, basically the main objective of the game is to create a fun game, like engaging game. According to Malone, what makes game fun is basically three factors that influence that. That is the challenge. A game usually they have some goals that the user have to achieve, and they present some challenge to the user in order to get the goal. The curiosity, it deals about the exploration that the user inside in the game, and the fantasy that can be described anything that is represented that does not exist. For example, if you represent a castle or something like that. Then I will talk about the social play and solitary experience, because I think it's quite important, not only in traditional game theory, but in exergames. For the last years, it has been a shift in the history of gaming towards more social games. Some people are claimed that they are engaged in games because they like to meet other people and socialize with other people. However, as Rose in his book in the game design theory also point out that the solitary experience of the game appeals a lot of players. Sometimes you don't have the right partner to play, or just you don't want to socialize with anybody and just play alone and forget about anything. This also you have to take into account this. There's some research, design guidelines from Boyd, and I will not go into the details from some studies from the court. Social play, well, it seems great and seems everything good, because also it is claimed that when you are interacting with other people, also increase your arousal, you perform better, but also has negative impact. For example, when you are with other people, maybe you feel shy, you feel like social pressure, and it's not all good, like interacting with other people. Another important aspect in traditional game theory is what is called the flow experience. that is the optimal experience that any designer wants to design in order to make the users achieve this state. Basically, this state is a balance between the skill and the challenge. Here you can see it's in this area. It's in that state that you are so immersed that you lose the sense of time, and you are so in the game that you forget everything. And other elements that also influence the experience and the formal design of the game is like intrinsic pleasure, the engagement, the complexity of the game, the uncertainty, how much the game surprised you. For example, you interacting and say, "Oh, I didn't expect that. Oh my God!" Okay. Then another input that we like to get in order to design the model is pervasive games. I will not talk very much this because we don't have time, but this kind of pervasive games is games that they don't, the boundaries of time and space, like you don't, there are no boundaries, like you can play anywhere, anytime, but well, I will not focus very much in this presentation. And another important source of information is actual studies about exergames. Before going to some of the studies of exergames, you may ask yourself, well, exergaming is a subset of games. Why not take traditional games and forget about trying to and use this in order to create a better exergame application? Well, because the exergames have some specificities that have to take into account that are important in order to design them well. First of all, we have the user. And what did change from traditional games? Well, the user input. You not only interact with your remote control, you interact through your body. Not only that, but so an input can be also physiological parameters. For example, the heart rate. This also introduced to the game another level of uncertainty because, well, in remote control, you have control of all the buttons that you push. You don't have very much control about how your heart rate responds to exercise. Then can create a level of uncertainty that you should take into account. Another important thing is goals and motivation. In traditional games, the goals basically are defined by the designer. The designer sets out goals, and you have to achieve these goals. In exergaming, you have your own goals. For example, finish exercise routine that are not thought by the designer, but you have your own goals. I want to do this, finish this routine of exercise, and the user has his own goal. And also the motivation. The motivation to play maybe not only is to have fun, but maybe to get the health benefits. For example, exercising with this kind of applications. Another important aspect I will call physical availability. That is, in traditional games, basically, when you have a new game, basically you have to learn the rules of the game and develop strategies in order to achieve the goals. In this case, you have another element that you interact with your body. And your body has some limitations. For example, if the child, you make jump like 2 meters, well, you have limitation on the body. You cannot reach that. And the user not only have to develop strategies in order to learn the rules of the game and to achieve the goals, but have to take into account his or her physical condition in order to achieve the goals. Another important aspect that they differ is the social interaction. Here, usually in traditional games, you social interact by speaking, but in this case, you have another level of communication that you can send message by gesticulating to other person. And for example, if some of you go off and running, it's quite different when you run with another person than when you are doing alone. Sometimes when you are running with other people, you don't feel as tired as when you're running alone. And it's like kind of sharing pain effect that causes when you do physical activity with other people. And let's see. Yes, and here in the social interaction, this is quite very interesting that point out with some article that I read, is, for example, when I'm doing boxing game, and imagine that I'm competing with another person. When I'm doing the body language, the other can see what I'm doing. Then the other person that I'm competing with can predict better what I'm going to do and take this information in order to, well, take advantage of this information. And this doesn't happen with traditional games because, well, you can see what the other is pushing in the buttons, but it's more difficult here, and it's more explicit because you are interacting with the full body. Then maybe when in competition games, users develop other strategies in order to hide the strategy, in order to hide what they're going to do. Well, these are some expressions that I have already talked. Here, for example, in the table tennis, that the video I showed to you, so the author points out that, for example, the players hit the ball like in the virtual image of the other in order to send a message like, I want to beat you. And this kind of embodied play happen in this and not in traditional games. Well, new forms of engagement and effectiveness. Well, this is quite important because, as I pointed out, in traditional games, the goal of the designer is to make the game fun. But in this case, it introduces the effectiveness and maybe in this type of games, the fun is not so as important. Imagine, for example, when you go to the gym. The gym is the most boring activity that you can do. It's like lifting weights, so boring. But the people still do that because they are effective. Maybe you get fit, but and here in this case, there is a dual flow model developed by some guys. In this case, here is the typical flow model that I explained before. And he introduced the effectiveness of the exercise. That maybe in this kind of exergames, this maybe takes a more important role than this. And of course, you are interacting with the full body. There is a risk of exertion. You might get injured for that. You might over-exertion. That doesn't happen with playing traditional games. You cannot over-exercise. Well, maybe yes, pushing too much buttons, but, well, it's not like the case. Well, we'll come back here on how we build the model. And I will not go into detail some of the studies, but here are some of the studies that I read about exertion games. Some design consideration. For example, you can introduce warming up and cool down in order to engage more the users. Like here, point out some introduce micro goals, etc. And for example, here, Exergaming for all the adults. That is an example of like physical availability. Here, they take into account that the adults cannot move cannot do very fast movements. Then they have to take into account how to design for this kind of users. And the dual flow model that is I show in the previous slide. And here it's quite relevant in this research. It's like a framework in social play in exergaming, but that the insights were taken from the human-human interaction. The author created like a 4-body lens that how we can look the body when it is doing exercise. Here, the responding body, how the body responds to the exercise. The moving body, how the body moves while doing exercise. The sensing body, how it relates like balls and other objects that you can interact. And relating body, that's how you can relate with other people. And develop like a framework also use the design schema from Stalin and Zimmerman, and like goes to some of them I mentioned, uncertainty of exertion, like, for example, the physiological parameters can introduce a level of exertion, awareness of exertion. Since you are interacting with technology, you can show the user how your, for example, heart rate evolves, and you can know how the awareness of what you are doing. Expression, I also mentioned, the risk, understanding of exertion. Some of the elements that some of them I mentioned. And here I also another input that we can take into account in order to build a model is review of actual exergames. For example, games like the Wii or the Kinect. And for that, I start, for example, the Punch-Out and see what the reviewers say about that. I created like a word cloud, because it's important to know why some games are rated high, some games are rated low, and maybe taking these inputs that you see, some of the concepts are coming from the game theory, appears more emphasized in these games. In this case, the game was rated quite high, and see it's fun, it's challenging. That it's, as also Malone pointed out, that one of the elements that influence the fun aspect, etc. Okay, this is more or less the inputs that we can get in order to construct the model. And from that, we'll create some case studies, some exergames. We will evaluate these exergames developed using the analytical tool that we'll create. And these inputs from these exergames will be used in order to redefine the model. Here I will show an example that an idea of a case study that could be interesting in the human, non-human point of view.
With this research, we try to investigate the bigger picture of how people exercise in the future and what role robots will play in it. People enjoy jogging together, but a lot of people, they just don't have anyone who jogs with them, or they just start off jogging and they need someone to run at their pace. So maybe it's good for them to have this embodied system of Joggobot that motivates them. For Joggobot, we use an AR drone, which is a flying quadcopter. It has a built-in camera, which allows the system to track the markers on the t-shirt of the jogger. As soon as Joggobot sees the jogger with the markers on the t-shirt, it starts going up. Then it tries to stay in a certain distance, which means if you start running, it slowly speeds up and until it reaches the same pace as you. And as soon as it doesn't recognize any markers anymore, it just goes down safely. People suggested that they might feel chased if the Joggobot is behind them, so we designed the system in a way that it always stays in front of you. As soon as a physical system has a form, it needs motors and makes a sound, and the sound has an impact on the experience, and designers need to address that. People enjoy that both are physical, the activity and the Joggobot, unlike jogging apps, which are not physical. Instead, they have something which they can relate to. Thank you for running with Joggobot.
Well, here is an example. For example, it would be interesting how to design like virtual characters of robots in order to feel that you are socializing with other people and take the benefits of that. For example, the sharing pain effect, that you don't feel as tired like interacting with robots. But at the same time, let's see if we can design in order to minimize the negative impact. For example, when maybe you are interacting with robots, maybe you don't feel shy, you don't feel like social pressure because you know that it's a robot. And yeah, this is, well, this is a little bit now the conclusions, review of what. I hope you understand what is Exergame. That's kind of interface that promote physical activity. Why? Well, there is a problem that this kind of technology can at least help a little bit, like if we design better exergames, we'll be able to engage more adolescents and people to do physical exercise and improve their health, and how this creating this model, taking all these inputs and building new exergame application that will hopefully finally create a good model. Well, this is now the more interesting part. Comments, suggestions are welcome to. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Any concerns that runners would be distracted by that little craft and eventually a car?
Repeat?
Any concerns that runners may be distracted by that little craft so that they might, get into an accident by a car? So looking at that little thing that's
Well, but if you consider that as like a partner, maybe when you're running, you can be also distracted by another partner. Then,
if you don't look at your partner, you're talking or you're running, you just know they're there. But this, takes a little bit of, I think, training for people to not, be affected by the novelty of the little craft that's flying in front of them. Maybe a little more interesting to watch how that flies rather than your partner who can communicate verbally or otherwise. Right?
well, you can also communicate verbally. Maybe you can, but well, yes, these are some considerations that in order to design, let's see how the people react when they are engaging in this kind of athletic with robots. But yes, this is a good point, like distract. Maybe that is why they try to test in the athletics field so that there is no danger on that. And also good point, maybe the robot can take the bottle of water. That you can put the water and you don't have to.
Maybe you have to chase the bottle of water.
a good motivation then.
A bit more about evaluation. So how once you have game model developed, presumably you make some games to try and test the model. How do you evaluate if the models?
Well, if for example, if we focus. A good thing to evaluate is, for example, if we focus on social play, that is where the analytical tool plays a role. For example, how much they socialize. For example, if you can create a tool that can analyze how much they interchange words between like me, the robot, or how can they gaze each other. We have to find these social things that when you are in physical activity, maybe we can test that in like human side. What's the elements that makes engage, and then create like a robot or like a virtual character, and let's see how can we achieve like at the same level of social, and yeah, have a automatic tool in order to analyze how in real time how they are behaving.
So is that evaluating the games or the tool?
Well,
so the design, if your goal is to come up with a new model of designing, then we should evaluate the model.
Well, no, the tool, the objective of the tool is to help us evaluate the applications we have. For example, because for the framework, for example, the Mueller, is based on questionnaires, and well, I think that having like a tool in order to like how much they socialize, to give some numbers to see if we create different settings, or if they interact more with the robot, or how much words they interchange. As this tool is like will help us in order to validate and evaluate the applications, and in turn the model that we want to create.
How the shadows resolve? Because there's always a possibility of shadows coming into play. Suppose I'm punching, you showed in the first video, kickboxing. So I'm kicking and there's a light source behind, so my shadow also will come to play. So how does it recognize and distinguish between the real body and the shadow?
Repeat.
You showed in the first video about kicking, kickboxing. So if there's a light source behind me and I'm kicking or I'm punching, so there's a shadow also which comes into place. So how does the system dissolve between the shadow and the real body?
Well, in the case, I don't know how exactly they implement that, but from my understanding, you can also use the shadow that is projected from if you throw light from behind, and use the shadow of your representation of the body. Actually, and then maybe put some cameras in order to track the shadow that is represented, to know where are you in the in this case of the virtual the space. But in this case, I don't know how they did that.
So when you develop your model, how are you going to collect the data so that your model can evaluate the game? How does the model know how socially interactive the game is?
Well, first, for example, from the social studies, we can get what is the characteristic that make people socialize. For example, if I look at you, it's like we are like exchanging information and socialize, and then we can try to have these inputs and to create the first experiments, and to see how we can design in order to create this and give really continuous input to the model to continuously redefine.
My question was how do you collect that data? How do you know, like, I look at him and he looks at me?
Well, we can. Well, here maybe we can use like cameras to see what I'm looking at, and to, for example, if we have like 3D tracking and my face, and I know, and I also track you, maybe we can know each time we are observing each other. Maybe, for example, the Kinect have also some audio recording, and maybe we can create like a speed recognition, and to create how many times we interchange words. This is something that all these parameters gives how much we interchange information, and how much at a later stage we socialize each other.
So would you need to develop all of those as well for you to develop your model?
Well, yeah, the idea is to have this kind of tools in order to also validate the models. Yeah. Now we have to see if I have enough time to do these kind of things. But, well, the idea is to, let's see how far we can get. And the good thing is that a lot of things are also going on in this lab that maybe I will not have to develop everything from scratch. Maybe for example, tracking gestures, maybe there's still some software that maybe some of you have started developing, and maybe I can take it and adapt it to, in my special case, that, of course, develop everything from scratch, well, would be crazy. But
So, no. So it seems like you really have a lot. So his question is really important. You have some amount of time to complete the project, and there's a lot of stuff that you put out already. I'm a little worried that this is a really, really big topic. I know you're just kind of proposing now, but it just seems like there's a lot, even just for building 1 or 2 games. There's so much stuff that goes into actually building a game that's effective. Plus now it's an exergame that's supposed to be effective. And if you point out that exergames are different than traditional games because of these factors, they also have to be effective games. Otherwise it's an exercise as opposed to an exergame, right? So an exergame has to be effective at both fun and exercise. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah.
Okay, so building fun games is hard. Building fun games that are effective exercisers is even harder. Right? So validation is going to be difficult because you're going to be validating both the quality of the fun part and the quality of the exercise part.
Well, but here is that maybe we don't have to like test all the parameters that are from traditional games, if the game is fun, if the game does provide the user enough exercise. That is why maybe if we focus on the social play, having insights on how to socialize people, like with virtual robots, maybe from that we can create a model how to design from this area. I'm not pretending to build like the exergame theory that solve all these problems. The thing is like to select something very concrete, and then from that like a building block. Like from that, try to. This needs to have a good planning and to like having the building blocks, and let's see how far we get. That is why maybe a good idea is if we can focus in. I said social game, but maybe we change and we focus on physical activity. But if we focus in a social game and human-on-human interaction, and also there is a framework that from the human-human interaction, well, maybe from that we can add some insights in that and expand a little bit this framework, and let's see, create a more general model from that.
I had kind of two related questions or comments and questions. One is there are other types of games that are not video games, such as you mentioned soccer, football, and tennis, these types of games. Have you looked at any of the? I mean, those are games that have been designed either by committee or just because they just developed over time. But there's a lot of people play them, so they're motivating, at least for a segment of the population who like to play table tennis or soccer. Are you going to look at those existing games that are very effective at both exercise and motivation that already exist that are not video games, and draw from those to design good exergames?
For example, create a soccer game.
Don't create a soccer game. Why is soccer? What is it about soccer that is compelling to people? What are the elements of those types of games? They're not video games, but are definitely physical and are motivating for people. Are there theories or rules or whatever frameworks that describe those types of games that you can bring in and say, okay, if you're making an exergame, we know that these things are good at physical games. Let's draw on the design of those games to make effective exergames. You haven't really talked about that much, but I'm wondering whether you're going to look at that.
Well, that's a good one. I haven't thought about this case, but yeah, maybe that's also a good input to. But yes, I haven't thought about this from this point of view.
Okay. The last point has to do with competition versus cooperation. So there's some games that are where the people cooperate, like a team sport, but they're competing with another team. But some cooperation is really important, which comes along with high-fiving each other, which is also kind of motivating. Then the competition of scoring more points or whatever than the other team. So are you looking at cooperation, competition at all in terms of part of your model?
Well, at this stage we haven't defined exactly this kind of, if we go to more cooperative, or we're still like in the process of defining this kind of things, yeah. Yes, maybe it's good before this stage. If we finally define, if we focus in the social play, then maybe that question is more important. But now the first direction is like maybe social play is good, but well, we haven't defined. Yes, we go that direction. Then maybe these other questions that how we can tackle this social play problem.
I was just going to say, and it kind of relates to the evaluation question as well, but you only have a certain number of parameters that you can measure and scales and track that. So whatever game it's going to be, probably in terms of
Define what?
Are you talk about how when you design a game a certain way, you can only measure those. Like for example, if he had a game that didn't have a social component, just a solitary game, it's impossible to evaluate, how social the game is because you don't play as a person.
It's sort of like you have a limited number of degrees of freedom, and that defines the space of all possible action. So you're only going to be able to measure social interaction in terms of hip movement and arm movement. It's the same with like how you define a game. Like you could define a game in terms of arm movement.
Well, another option is, as Rob said, that maybe take existing game, for example, in this case, table tennis, and like try to, in this case, they develop the social play table tennis like that interact over a distance, and maybe take, or maybe you can think about a soccer game, and take existing games and try to add technology in order to go, for example, to play a soccer over a distance, for example. Imagine that in this type of case, like we are in, I am in Spain and you are here, or I am in Argentina, and then we will play soccer in different locations. Then would be like another type of exergame, and let's see how we can socialize with each other. And what is the design? How can design our communication? How we represent me on your side to make you feel that you are interact with another person, and in this case, how does it affect you? Well, this kind of things is what I think what would be quite interesting.
It just sounds like the table tennis one was a good example because when you first showed it, we thought they were playing table tennis, but then it turned out they were actually playing a game similar to table tennis. So like, the rules for table tennis don't have to be defined in terms of two people hitting a ball back quite differently in this case. One person hitting the ball.
In this case, the game is like you have these squares and you get a point, not a point to the other, but you have to hit to these squares, and you have to, and in this way you don't have to like have another person. You interact with like finally with some virtual elements, but at the same time you see the other person and you can affect the other person because you see virtually like video conference the other person how is behaving.
Actually, does your model also include hand construct? Already there are so many exercises that can be augmented with, or maybe can be extended to exercises. For example, just adding on to another one. For example, you run on a treadmill, and then you define certain aims and objectives, and then create a virtual environment. Is that also coming under your proposal? Different area.
You mean like this kind of bikes, for example, an example of the bikes you represent some virtual and you run into a virtual environment, this kind of example.
That's like extending the already existing exercise models that already exist. And then to just create fun and then objective and the game objectives. Does that also come under your
well, if finally, for example, we focus in social play, and we can maybe take this kind of like treadmill, this kind of physical that helps you exercise, and let's see how we can also socialize with each other using this kind of tools. Yes, this can be a possible that also fits inside the category. But still now it's like the 2 months that more still have to define more a little bit exactly what we're going to find out, which area, if social play, physical activity, or even if education, we can take into account, and then try to find what we want to get from that. This still have to be defined. Yeah.
So one question about what is the ideal output of your model? Because you were talking about it like it would be some kind of a software. Did I understand that correctly? That your model you would want to integrate into some kind of a software that would automatically analyze a game and then output some kind of a result.
Well, one part is the games, that the game itself, that doesn't have anything to do with the analytical tool. And this analytical tool, well, may run separately that would analyze instead like, it will be like I was thinking like a machine that is observing and you don't have to be like annotating, oh, it look each other. That's some automatical tool that have like classify gestures. For example, if you are able to build a tool that can classify, that do some gestures and you can classify, you may say, oh, maybe in this type of games, they use more this upper body or this hand, and which 10%? Well, it's difficult to see like observing like human, but maybe if a right tools probably can do that, and also can, if we have some speed recognition, maybe you can know how much the time they change words and this kind of, and you don't have to worry about, oh, I have annotated everything, and to build some more precise evaluations to the games. But the software principle should be independent of the games and the model. This only like would develop maybe some numbers that then we have to analyze, and then this will say, oh, with this application they socialize quite a lot, or they did a lot of physical exercise, and then try now how this can input to the model to redefine the model.
Okay, so that would be a side project. Analytical tool.
Well, the idea would be like a contribution to the PhD. The main contribution will be to design this model in order to create better exergames, and this could be like can say like a sub contribution or another contribution.
Design guidelines for developers.
Yeah.
So that's probably you can go and buy books now that tell you how to design different types of games. And might be some as editing.
Yeah, so it would be like let's say the model would be written down in some kind of a paper, and then that gives you guidelines.
Yeah. And one of the things which David didn't talk about so much is that the Punch-Out game he showed, what he was trying to do is look at several different boxing games, and the Punch-Out one that he showed worked out for, this is very highly rated, it's about 80%, 85 to 90%. Some games like the Donkey boxing is about 30%. So, do you have the worked out from the other one?
Well, I have, yes, I have the.
So you can look at the two and you can figure out why one game, which is they're both boxing games, why one game's so popular, why four games are famous. Show you. He's analysed 3 games now.
Well, here is the word cloud. For example, this is a really bad game.
Oh, this is the bad one. It's the Free to Rumble.
That here is, for example, see that some of the reviewers focus on the control problems, like media graphics. Even that they said, oh, it allows a lot of possibilities. It's a potential game, a lot of customizations, but well, like the input is so For example, they say, oh, you do something and it takes some time to answer, or do something else. Then it's impossible to interact with this kind of game. And another example, is the Donkey Kong. That is like a medium-rated game that focus also some of the bad things that repetitive gameplay that maybe also can explain by this the element of surprise of the Malone, like what makes game fun. Then, for example, this is like some of the problems. That is why maybe this game was not rated as high as Punch-Out. But well, here we have the same control, some of the lack of user strategy. Well, it has like some good and bad things in this game. That is why it's like middle rated. And maybe the idea is maybe take this feedback, why some games are rated high, why some games are rated poor, why middle, and what of the elements that make these games good, bad. And well, let's see what we can get from this, and we can input this information into our model to create a better model that also can be used to explain why games are good, what games are bad, and this kind of thing. Yeah.
So please give a hand.